بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد نورك ساري ومادتك جاري واجمعني به في كل أطوار وعلى آله وصحبه يا نور الحمد لله. So today inshallah we're hoping to complete the Khatam of the Quran and the possible anticipation of Eid tomorrow, although let's wait and see on that one. But inshallah, either way, we're hoping to complete, inshallah, we're hoping to complete this Khatam. And inshallah, Allah knows best, but maybe for many of us, it's the first time we're going to complete a Khatam of going through the meanings of the Quran. And to be honest, even this has been very brief. It hasn't been like a forensic, let's go through every single chapter in detail. It's just been general, giving major points, things to talk about, things to discuss, that kind of thing. But inshallah, we've been going through juz by juz. So today we're on the final two ajza. So the 29th juz of the Quran is most of the surahs are Meccan. So therefore the themes are going to be the themes of the afterlife, the themes of what they call responsibility or judgment. One of the things that the 29th juz tells us about is the fact that everything we do in our life matters and we're going to be asked about it. Now that's significant. It's interesting. If you look at the Arabs at the time, they were the only people that didn't believe in an afterlife. Every single other group at that time believed. You look at the Greeks, they believed in it. The Chinese believed in it. The Africans, different, Sudanese, East, West Africa, they believed in it. The North Americans, every single society in the world at that time believed there's an akhirah. Whatever they might believe some wacky things about it, whatever they believe, reincarnation, but they all believe there's some type of akhirah to come and there's life matters, there's meaning to life, we're going to be judged. The only people on the whole face of the planet who didn't believe those were the Arabs. So mashallah, look at the wisdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to send the Quran to the Arabs. Because now you're sending it to a people who don't believe in that. And that's exactly what we're in now. So the Quran talks about, the Quran is being addressed to the same people that we see around us now, atheists. We don't even believe in an afterlife. That's who it's actually addressing. And so these type of surah talk about that. That for example, it talks about we created life and death in order to test you, to try you. This is one of the big problems now. If you don't believe in a purpose in life, you're always going to have a problem with evil. Why do children suffer? Why does someone who's a good guy, he gets done over, and then someone else who's evil, they get away with it? If you don't believe in any final judgment to come, then you're going to have problems, aren't you? This is it's a cruel world. We live in a very, very cruel, very unjust world. I mean, just look at Masjid al-Aqsa right now. It's a very cruel and unjust world. So you can't make sense of it unless you have that. So the Quran, the early message was giving that. Secondly, how are you going to behave? Like realistically, how are you going to behave well and properly without an afterlife? The vast majority of people, they're not going to do something unless there's like something that they're afraid of or some kind of advantage in it. Vast majority. Now, obviously, you have the fitrah. Some people, mashallah, they're going to be good anyway, just because they're good people. But the majority of us know. If there's no speed cameras on the road, we're going to speed. Yeah, if there's no prison system out there, we're just going to do whatever we want. That's the nature of the human being. Vast majority of us. Now, amongst them, there's people, but the most of us, we need that. That's why any religion, you look at any religion that's spread, it has to have heaven and hell in it. And give you an example, look at Buddhism. Buddhism, when it first was introduced as a religion, it was obviously changed. The original Buddhism, Allah Ta'ala Alam. I mean, we have an opinion Buddha was a prophet. There's no reason to think that he wasn't a prophet, because there's 124,225, we don't account for most of them. So you have that, but obviously there's been massive change, like reincarnation. That's not from Islam. The idea that I was once an ant or a slug and I'm a human being, none of that stuff is from any proper source. But if you look at Buddhism, it didn't spread. And then the Buddhists, they changed their beliefs. You've got what they call, I think, sort of freeland Buddhism, and they started to introduce heaven and hell. Suddenly it spread all over China, just like that. Now there's a message people will connect to. Okay, if I do well, I'll go to heaven. If I don't, I'll go to hell. Yeah, this is what the human being needs, and this is what a lot of these surah are about. Yeah, so Surah Al-Mulk contains that, and it outlines the idea of life being a test. Yeah, it outlines the idea of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being merciful towards us. And sometimes that mercy comes through difficulty. Yeah, so many other themes. There's 30 short ayahs, this surah. And as we know, the surah is a protection for the punishment of the grave. Yeah, so it's something that our teacher Habib Umar, he said that what's an intelligent person? He said an intelligent person is someone who reads Surah Mulk every night. Because what's a stupid person? Someone who doesn't read Surah Mulk every night. Because it goes, we know, and there's no dispute, is it? Because everyone knows that Surah Mulk is a protection against the grave. I mean, it's a sound hadith. There's no one, no matter what group of Muslims or whatever that they are, no one's going to disagree. It's just everyone knows that. Everyone accepts it. So he goes to not read it, knowing that it's going to protect you from the punishment of the grave. That's the essence of stupidity. You know, why would you not? So Surah Mulk is a very special surah. There's many narrations about it. It's one of the surahs we should try to read every day. You know, it's one of those like Yasin and Waqia. It's one of these regular surahs we should try to bring in. And we should also be reflecting on the meanings. It's a short surah. It's only 30 ayat. One of the things about this surah also is mentioned is the conversations are going to be had in the next world. So people are going to be asked, the angels are going to be asked, so the angels are going to ask people, Alam yatikum nathir, did someone not come to you? Did someone not come to you to tell you about the fact that you're going to burn now in hell? And what do they say? They say, yeah, they say, kunna nasma, law kunna nasma wa na'qilu. If we had listened and if we had used our minds, if we had used our brains, we wouldn't be from the people of hellfire. And then something even more extraordinary, the Quran says, فَاعْتَعْرَفُوا بِذَنْبِهِمْ. Then they admit their sins. So in this world, they won't admit it. When they come there, when they're facing their Lord and they're facing the Sa'id, the burning hellfire, then they admit it. Yeah, so the point for us, mashallah, is that we have a loving, joyful, a joyous, a Lord who wants to see us turn to him. Yeah, a Lord who wants to love us and wants to honor us. Yeah, so all we have to do is honor ourselves in this life. Yeah, honor ourselves in this life by becoming people that take on and receive that message, inshallah. So we have that. Then this other surah, just to go through it briefly, we're going to have a lot of time to go through each surah. We have Surah Noon that comes after that. Surah Noon is from amongst the earliest revelation. Yeah, so Surah Noon is like right at the beginning. After Surah Alaq, the ayat, some say Noon, that's the next one. It actually comes after a period of time where the Prophet ﷺ wasn't receiving wahi, he wasn't receiving revelation, and he begins to wonder almost like what's going on here. I haven't received revelation in a while, and then this comes. Yeah, these ayat come down. Okay, there's many themes. There's one verse in this surah that I want to mention, which is a famous verse, which is وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَىٰ خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, which is referring to the Prophet ﷺ. And this is at the highest praise. It's the highest praise in the Quran for the Prophet ﷺ. That the verse means that indeed or certainly you are above and beyond tremendous character. Khuluq azim. That the Prophet ﷺ is absolutely perfect in his character. That's the highest praise that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to the Prophet ﷺ within the Quran. Indeed, you are above and beyond tremendous character. And literally there's been books, hundreds, even thousands of books written on this verse. So it's a very, very important verse, mashallah, that the ulama ponder on a lot and discuss in a lot of detail. Almost as if it's like a summary of the Shama'il, which is the character of the Prophet ﷺ. So all of that is contained within this verse. So we have that, then we go on. The next verse, the next surah, afan, is Al-Haqqa. Al-Haqqa means the great event. So the Al-Haqqa is a direct reference to the Day of Judgment. Yeah, and it talks about the terrifying nature of the Day of Judgment. Like a lot of these surahs are talking about issues related to the next life and related to responsibility and judgment. They're all talking about these themes. If you go on now, I won't have time to go through every surah. Well, another important surah is Surah Muzammil. Surah Muzammil tells us about the importance of night prayer, tahajjud or qiyamul layl. What we say is praying in the last third of the night. Now they say the one who prays in the last third of the night, he loses interest in committing sin. We were talking about this earlier. Not that you're not going to sin, you're not even interested, you don't even think about it, you don't even want to commit sin anymore. The idea of sin becomes like disgusting to you. And they said this is the highest level of tawbah. One level, imagine you make tawbah for something, but you're still thinking about it. And when you think about it, it's still a bit enjoyable. You know, so like, I don't know, you used to smoke or used to drink, and you think about it, you're not going to do it, but the thought of it excites a bit of excitement. You're like excited to see what the fire and the coals have gone up, there's still a bit of crackle in those coals in there, still a bit of crackles. Like you think about it and it's enjoyable. That's tawbah, but it's a weaker tawbah. That someone else, he thinks about it. Sorry, someone else, he doesn't even think about it. MashaAllah. So they don't have any thoughts about it. So they used to do wrong things in the past. Now they don't even think about it. It doesn't even occur to them to do that thing anymore. MashaAllah, that's higher level. But what's the highest level of tawbah? The highest level of tawbah is when you think about it and you feel disgusted. I can't believe I used to even do that. You think about it and it repels you. Like you think about like smoking, that's disgusting. It stinks. Like, why would it, like I knew this brother who used to smoke like many years to smoke cannabis, and he said that it got to the point where he gave it up. And he goes, now when I think about it, I just think, wow. Like, was that me? You know, that's the highest level, isn't it? That level is reached through consistency in tahajjud. Yeah, you lose interest in it, and then you start to even find it disgusting. So tahajjud is, mashallah, it's an immense thing. They mentioned like, they asked our teacher, Habib Umar in Yemen, they said to him that you give da'wah to people, and it has a massive impact. You know, when you explain something, it has a massive impact. And other people are doing the same thing as you. They're doing exactly the same things, but it doesn't have the same impact. Why is that? And he said, his response, a response of humility, he said, it's because I do this. He just said, he gave a general response. He said, when it comes to da'wah, he said 90% of the work is done in the night. 90% of the work is done in the depths of the night. It's calling upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the case with everything. If you really want to change and improve our lives, if there was just one thing that you could do, just one thing. Look, there's too many things here. How many things do you want me to do? So just one thing. We're coming towards the end of Ramadan. Just take this one thing. Be consistent upon night prayer. Like if it's too difficult for you to be up for like an hour or something, then just do something. Even like just to wake up and do the Fatiha is something. You know what they do with the children in Tareem? They wake them up and they give them like toys to play with at that time. So just so they get used to waking up at that time. You just get used to it, and just to the barakat are descending at that time, it reaches them just by giving them something to do. Yeah, so at least wake up, make wudu, pray 2 rakats. If you can't do that, then at least wake up and read the Fatiha. Someone says read the Fatiha 3 times. Yeah, you read it once for yourself, once for your family, and once for your community. Like before Fajr, Tahajjud time, Tahajjud time. Yeah. You know, like, so that's suhoor time. Yeah, just before. What they say, you know, the last third of the night. That's when. So if you look at the night, whenever Maghrib comes in, up until whenever Fajr comes in, you time that the last third of the night. That's what you have to catch. So the last of the night is normally more. It varies. It depends on the time of year. So in the winter, it's a lot more. But what I would say is if you get the last 20 minutes before Fajr, that's the best time. The closer you get to Fajr, the more barakah. But any time in the last third is good. But if you're going to get that time, that's what you see all over the world now. That time, they always specify it. If you go to anywhere, like I remember when it used to be in fairs in Morocco, you could hear it, mashallah. You know, you'd wake up and you could hear the dhikr. When we were in Tareem, it was the same. You can hear them making dhikr. It was a beauty living in Muslim lands. Like you sat in your bed, you kind of open one eye, you can hear inna fi khalqis samawati wal ardi, they're reading the Quran, the ayat and stuff like that, mashallah. So it's a blessed environment. Alhamdulillah, inshallah, we can establish environments like that in this country, inshallah ta'ala. I mean, the last of Sheikh Abdi, mashallah, that's what he's trying to do, isn't he? He's trying to establish villages where people can just remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it's just there within your community, inshallah. That's what we really need. That's when Islam comes alive. So if that's the one thing, and this is where the Prophet ﷺ is being told. And it's interesting, in another verse, in another surah, it says that perhaps, that he says like, for tahajjud bi nafatan like, asallaha, yeah, perhaps Allah will raise you to the Maqam al-Mahmud, the highest rank of the Prophet ﷺ, by doing tahajjud. Now obviously the Prophet ﷺ has that rank anyway, he doesn't have to earn it. So what's the secret with that ayah? The ulama telling us, if you want to reach a high rank, a praiseworthy rank, then become a person of the tahajjud. Yeah, so it's an essential thing. The next surah, then Surah Al-Mudaththir. Surah Al-Mudaththir outlines the prophetic mission, how the Prophet ﷺ called people. So initially, the Prophet ﷺ is told to call just his family and his immediate people. Then this comes this ayat, Qum fa'anzir. Stand up and warn people. This is now a wider warning. Yeah, stand up and warn. Yeah, so now he's told to go out to different people, and he's also told, interestingly, when you warn people, then be patient, because people aren't going to like it. It's going to get nasty, which is exactly what happened. Yeah, it's going to get nasty. Now you've got to be ready for that. So we have that, and there's other aspects within the surah as well. We also have in this blessed juz, we have Surah Al-Qiyamah, which talks about the Yawm Al-Qiyamah. He explains the Yawm Al-Qiyamah. It's got some beautiful verses at the end, which what we would say is like, we've been talking about logic a lot. It gives you like a logical argument for why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, like why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created the afterlife. Because basically the Arabs at the time, they didn't believe in the afterlife. Now, what the Quran is saying is that who created you in the first place? You didn't just come from the sky, did you? Who created you? And now the Arabs all believe that Allah created them. They believe that even though they used to worship idols, they believed in one God. So he's thinking, okay, if you're going to believe someone's created you, then surely it's easier to bring you back to life. Like logically, it's easier. If someone's created you from nothing, what's harder, to create from nothing or to bring someone back to life? Bring someone back to life as much because they're already there, aren't they? Just bringing it back to life. So how can you deny the afterlife when you accept that you were created by Allah? Yeah, this is the argument that's used at the end. And he says, because like the verse, one of the verses says that, do you think that Allah just created you for no purpose? Of course not. Like this, and this is very much about the modern world now. This is what people think now. We were talking about like with education. Like if they say to you, what does it mean to be good? What's a good person? I don't know. What's a good person? No, they can't even tell you what a good person is anymore. What does it mean? Like, why is it good to be honest? Why is it good to be courageous? Like with these guys, there is no benefit. What's the benefit of being honest? You're gonna make some money from it. The benefit? That's the kind of world, and we become like that now as Muslims. We become very, very cynical. If there's nothing in it for me, I'm just not going to do it. If there's nothing, like you see people now, they just like they're happy. Like how many people do we know who are happy like now for someone to sell alcohol? Yeah, knowing that the damage that it's doing. Oh, I'm just selling it to non-Muslims, and you're selling it knowing that it does damage, but because it makes a lot of money, you make serious money from it. Yeah, so this is where we've reached now. And this was saying that's only when there's no purpose to your life. As soon as there's purpose to your life, then you've got a moral criterion. Yeah, so this is Surah Al-Qiyamah. Surah Al-Insan, they've got the last two surahs now of this 29 juz. Surah Al-Insan talks about Jannah. Surah Mursalat talks about hellfire. Okay. Now, both of those surahs have elements. If you look at Surah Al-Insan, 90% of it is about Jannah. Then it talks a little bit about hellfire. Surah Mursalat is the opposite. So Surah Al-Mursalat is quite a scary surah. Surah Al-Insan is mashallah. It's a beautiful, really, really beautiful. So they recite it, the Prophet ﷺ would recite it every Friday in the second rak'ah of Fajr prayer. So the first rak'ah he would start Surah Sajda, the second one is ayah. So I still remember now when we were in Yemen, every Friday, Habib wanted to recite it, mashallah. It's absolutely beautiful. That because the description, he gives really beautiful descriptions of Jannah. It like kind of almost like puts you there. Yeah, it's as if when you're hearing that, honestly, it's like you're in Jannah. It's very, very descriptive and detailed. There's another reason why we should open our hearts up to understanding the Quran. Is if you don't understand it, you're there and you're probably just thinking about what you're going to eat for your breakfast. And like to a certain extent, can you blame someone for thinking that? But they don't even understand what the words are being said. So obviously that man is going to be out. So like people are going to come to Taraweeh, stand for an hour and a half. Alhamdulillah, we got this masjid, it's a bit easier. You're going to go to Taraweeh, you got an hour and a half, and you listen to the Imam saying the Quran, you don't know a word of what it means. I mean, mashallah, if you can maintain concentration, mashallah, well done. That you can maintain. I couldn't maintain concentration until I learned the meanings. And then there was no one else I wanted to be than Taraweeh. I wanted a 3-hour Taraweeh, 4-hour Taraweeh. I would be happy to do all night because you're enjoying it. You listen to the meanings, and this is like the most beautiful words that you've ever heard. So why would you not want more and more of it? But that only comes through meaning. And there's nothing in life for free. Yeah, nothing's in life for free. You put that bit of effort in, and then mashallah, Allah rewards you. Yeah, how many of us have done a 3-year degree course here? 4-year degree course, 6-7 years to become a doctor. Yeah, it wasn't easy, was it? The first year, 2-3 years, you're struggling, it's hard work. But then afterwards, the thing is, afterwards, what fruits do you get? You get a good job. So what? Whereas here, look at what you get in this world and in the next world as well. Yeah, in this world, the pleasure that you get is incomparable. There's no pleasure like being able to hear the Quran. Yeah, and understand the Quran, especially in prayer. As I mentioned, our teacher Sheikh Ibrahim is an ajib person, mashallah. He said everyone has something that they love. Yeah. And you can tell you thought about it because everyone has something that, like, there's one thing that you can get. What would be your one wish? And he goes, you know, my wish would be, because my wish would be to stand behind the Prophet ﷺ and hear him recite the Quran in prayer. That's very clever. What's he thinking? He wants to be, number one is in prayer. Number two is with the Rasul ﷺ. Number three is hearing his blessed voice. Number four is hearing the Quran. I mean, that's just, I just thought about it, he's like, he's ticked off all the boxes there. I mean, mashallah. Like, you could have just said, I'd love to have the murafaq of Rasulullah, or I'd love to hear the Quran recited, or I'd love to be in prayer. All those things, but then I just come out all together. So mashallah, that's something to wish for. Yeah, that's high himmah. Yeah, and now those kind of experiences are only going to come once you start to understand and start experience a bit more dhawq of the religion, inshallah. So inshallah, the doors are open. The doors have always been open. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has flung the doors open for us. We just need to enter. Just take a few steps and just enter into His mercy and His fadl, inshallah. So we have that. The Surah Mursalat on the other end is a much scarier surah. Okay, so that's Juz 29. Now Juz 30, there's I forget, 78, 22, 32. Okay, I think there's 36. Yeah, there's 36 surahs. So obviously, I'm not going to go through 36 surahs. The 36 because Juz Amma, the final Juz, the final Spara, is short surahs, short, powerful surahs. They sound beautiful. They're the sound, just to hear them recite. If you hear like some of these Egyptian Qur'an or some of the Syrians, subhanAllah, they blow you away the way they recite it. The Juz Amma, just beautiful. Or even many of the others, even some of the Pakistanis. Don't forget the Pakistanis, mashallah, they're beautiful reciters as well. But the meanings of them are about, like, they're very powerful verses, because those verses were revealed to people that didn't believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they knew the beauty of the Arabic language. So it's really powerful. It's like impacts them, and that's why many of them, how many became Muslim just by hearing the Quran? It's amazing. For us, it's ajib. The Prophet ﷺ is before you. You meet him, you know him, you see him every day, he's in your community and you don't become Muslim. But then you hear the Quran and you do. We can't understand that as Ajam, non-Arabs. Because why did we become Muslim? The vast majority of the world became Muslim because of the Prophet ﷺ. They saw his character through examples. Like we were talking about this earlier today, the great Khwaja Muinuddin Chishti. 10 million Muslims in India became Muslim through him. You know, mashallah, through his efforts, he used to feed people, etc., etc. But the reason they became Muslim was because he embodied the prophetic character. Why did they become Muslim in Malaysia and Indonesia? Because they saw the nur of the Prophet ﷺ. Yeah. Why did they become Muslim in all over the world? All of these non-Arab countries. Turkey. Why the Muslim in Turkey? They don't know Arabic language. Well, obviously some of them learned it, but that wasn't the reason. All of these people all became Muslim because of the character. Now the Arabs is actually different. The early Arabs, they actually became Muslim because of the Quran. So these verses are there, and they're very, very powerful verses. Yeah, that are there. So the first surah in this chapter is Surah An-Naba. An-Naba means like the great news. Yeah? So it's giving you the great news of what's to come. And it explains some of the aspects of the Yawm al-Qiyamah. Alam naj'al al-arda mihada, when the earth is flattened out, wal jibala awtada, etc., etc. It talks about it. So it says, did we not, Afwan, it starts off, it talks about the blessings Allah has given you. Did we not spread out the earth for you? Did you not make the mountains as pegs? This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now enticing people. He's teaching them, why should you worship me? Why should you love me? Why should you accept me as your Lord? Because look at these blessings I've given you. And then he goes on and he starts to talk about the Yawm al-Qiyamah, and he even tells you what people say again. Yaqulu kafir ya laytani. Yeah, like he says, the kafir says, ya laytani, if only I was dust. Woe is to me, when he realizes and understands what's going to happen. The next surah, Surah Nazi'at, has the story of Sayyidina Musa and Fir'aun. Yeah, Sayyidina Musa and Fir'aun. So it's telling you about the rejection of prophets. And why is it that prophets are rejected? So this is one of the key themes, and he mentioned many other aspects within it as well. It's got, towards the end, it's got a couple of verses that summarize the whole religion of Islam. If you want to understand what Islam is, it's summarized in 2 verses. Yeah. وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ, one verse, 2 parts of 1 verse. وَأَمَّا مَنْ خَافَ مَقَامَ رَبِّهِ وَنَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَىٰ. Yeah. If you understand that, you've understood the religion. The one who fears maqama rabbihi, 2 meanings. The one who fears standing before Allah, number 1. Or the one who fears the rank of his Lord, who understands the exalted nature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The one who fears that, number 1. And number 2, nahan nafs anil hawa, he restrains, he prevents his nafs from doing whatever he wants. Those 2 things. That's all religion right there. If you understand that. If you understand that you have to be a person who fears standing before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That the great Imam al-Awza'i is saying that your whole life's going to be played out to you frame by frame, bit by bit. Now, the one who fears that standing will never sin. The one who fears that standing will never disobey, he'll never even waste a moment. Yeah, he won't waste a single second of his life. Why are you going to waste time in your life when you know you're going to stand for Allah and explain what you did? You're not going to waste a second of your life. And then secondly, that's spirituality in a nutshell, to control your own desires. The biggest enemy that we have is our nafs. The biggest veil that's preventing us from seeing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is our own nafs. That's the biggest veil. Look at Ramadan. There's no shayateen, but we still struggle in Ramadan. Why? Because the nafs is there. Nafs is far worse. It's worse than 70 devils. Yes, worse than the great Imam al-Junayd said that the nafs is worse than 70 shayateen. Yeah, there's even a hadith, Allah Ta'ala about the authenticity of a hadith that indicate similar meanings. But certainly it's established by the early communities that the nafs is by far the greatest enemy. Yeah, so the one who can restrain his nafs and the one who feels standing before his Lord, mashallah, he's got this. And there's some of the other surahs then within this that we can look at. If we start getting towards the end, we have surahs in praise of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, for example, the surah Alam Nashrah. Yeah, that's a well-known surah that is now praising the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That talks about how Alam Nashrah Kasalah, did we not expand your chest? I.e., did we not illuminate you? Did we not give you knowledge and secrets that weren't given to other people? And then it goes on a few ayahs later, it says, وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ. Did we not raise your remembrance? Yeah, which is one of them. I mean, just that verse alone, وَرَفَعْنَا لَكَ ذِكْرَكَ. What's interesting about that verse, and this is where we really, subhanAllah, the Quran, it just bewilders you, is that verse was revealed very early on in Mecca. So at that time, there was no, the Prophet ﷺ's remembrance wasn't raised. No one even knew the Prophet ﷺ was. He had a handful of followers around him. But look at that. We've raised your remembrance. Look at the world now. 1.8 billion Muslims. Yeah, the adhan heard in every corner of the planet. Yeah, all of this praise upon praise upon praise upon praise of the Prophet ﷺ. Yeah, he's foretelling what's to come. Yeah, and then the other great surah of praise in this chapter, in this Job story, is Surah Al-Kawthar. Inna a'tainaka al-Kawthar. We have given you abundant good. Kawthar, yeah. Fasalli li rabbika wanhar inna shani'aka huwa al-abtar. Yeah. So worship to your Lord and sacrifice. Indeed, the one who opposes you is cut off. Yeah, he's cut off from all barakah and good. So that inna a'tainaka al-Kawthar, they said that was revealed to like give joy to the heart of the Prophet ﷺ. That surah was revealed to give joy, to please the Prophet ﷺ. That was the primary aim for the descension of that surah. Yeah. And then we carry on, and so then just to finish, then finally the last three surahs in the Quran, we have Surah Al-Ikhlas. Surah Al-Ikhlas is 1/3 of the Quran is explained in Surah Al-Ikhlas. Qul huwallahu ahad. Qul huwallahu ahad is telling you, is like, how was it revealed? Some of the Jews, some say some of the Jews in Medina, they came to the Prophet ﷺ. Or some say some of the mushrikeen in Mecca, they came to the Prophet ﷺ. Two stories. Allah alam, I mean, I'm sure they're both true. Once happened in Medina, once happened in Mecca. And they said, describe our Lord, describe Allah. What does he look like? Is he from made of gold, silver? This was the stupidity of the understanding. And then Qul huwallahu ahad came down. That your Lord is not like anything that you can imagine. He is Allah Ahad, the unique. Then Allahu Samad, he's completely independent. Allahu Samad has two meanings. Number one, the meaning is Allah is completely independent of creation. Yeah, he doesn't need anything. He doesn't need food, drink. He doesn't even need space to exist. I know as human beings, we need space to exist. That's why he doesn't need space, he needs time. That's why it's ludicrous that Allah is above the heavens. How can Allah be in a fixed place in the sky? I mean, he created this space, he created time, doesn't need time. So it means that Allah Samad, more importantly for us, Allah Samad means that we are completely dependent upon him. We are completely dependent upon him, but he is completely free of us on creation. That's what Allah Samad means. Yeah? So it's one of the ulama of haqa'iq, of spiritual realities. They love this verse, Allah Samad, and the name As-Samad, because there are people, like they talk about the concept of fana. There are people that become annihilated in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yeah, such that their own nafs no longer exists. So when you become annihilated in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all you see is God. All you see is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you see his samadiyya in creation. Yeah, that's why like you look at Imam al-Qushayri, these great imams. If you look at Imam al-Qushayri, his Tafsir al-Quran is beautiful. And he talks about this concept a lot. Yeah, these are people who are experiencing this. Yeah, the experience, not just words. Then lam yalid wa lam yulad. Allah has no beginning, nor does he have an end. Yeah, he doesn't have children, nor does he have a father. And that's basically essentially what's saying. If you had children, then there's now some kind of continuity from Allah. If you had a father, it means that there was somebody before him, but rather he's the first and the last. Yeah, and then walam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. There's nothing like him, the one and only. So the final one there is just confirming that whatever occurs to your mind, Allah is other than that. Like the Siddiq, Abu Bakr Siddiq, he said that our inability to know Allah is knowledge of Allah. Yeah. Well, who is Allah? The fact that we don't know, that's knowledge. If you understand that much, you've got the point. Our inability to know Allah is knowledge of Allah. Yeah. And then the final two surahs then in the Quran, we have the Mu'adhatain. These two surahs came to protect us. Qul a'udhu bi rabbil falaq came to protect us from all our outer enemies in the world. Yeah, all our outer enemies, Surah Falaq protects us. Surah An-Nas came to protect us from inner enemies, shaitan, these whispers, these devils that we can't see. Yeah. So those two surahs, that's why they recommend the Sahaba, every single one of them, after every one of the 5 prayers, they will read Ayatul Kursi, they would read Falaq, they would read Nas. They wouldn't leave those 3 no matter what. They would always read them because they understood I've got outer inner prayer, and Ayatul Kursi, mashallah, is just a protection, full stop. If you recite those 3 and make it a regular wird, don't ever leave a prayer without having recited those 3. Don't ever go to sleep without having recited those 3. Don't ever wake up in the morning without having recited those 3. Yeah, make it a regular thing, and then you come into the protection. And then even if you ever miss a day, you'll feel it. And then after a while, you'll be like, okay, yeah, I need to recite. Something's gone wrong. Like, what's happened? You feel something, and then you'll remember, and you'll end up reciting it. Yeah. So those also. Well, other bit with Falaq, he talks about our outer enemies. It also mentions the devil as well. The hasid, the jealousy of the jealous one. And then Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas is much more specific about the waswas, the whisperer, the one who whispers into the hearts. And it gives us a means of protecting ourselves. Qul a'udhu bi rabbin nas also, they say just before you start praying, after the Iqamah is done, Imam Ghazali said to recite Surah An-Nas at that point, just before you go into your prayer, as a means of protecting yourself from devilish whisperings and thoughts and insinuations and stuff. Yeah, so these are some of them. The whole of the Quran is medicine, but certainly these final surah are definitely medicinal in nature. People use them to treat various spiritual and also physical diseases as well. Okay, inshallah. So that's it. So now that brings the Quran to the end. Now the Quran comes to an end. When the Quran finishes, what's the first thing we do? We read the Fatiha. When you do Khatam of the Quran, you don't read Surah Nas and then put your Quran away, do you? You read the Fatiha. That's telling you that started again. That the Quran is never to be abandoned. It's always like you start to read it again, we continue to read it. That the great Sayyidina Uthman, he would read a full Quran in one unit, one rakah. You read a full Quran. Yeah? And they said about the early people, they said that they never ever they were never ever filled up on the Quran. They were always thirsty for more. They always needed more. It's like you drinking. And one of our teachers, Sheikh Hamza, he said, I've been reading Surah Waqia for about 40 years every day. Read 40 years, because every single time I read it, I find a new meaning. Something that I hadn't seen before. What other book can you read? Like you read a book 3 or 4 times, and the whole book, not just one chapter, the whole book, and khalas, you're not going to find anything new in that book now. You've read it. The Quran, the surah, just one surah, you read it 40s every day. How much is that? What's the maths? If there's any great mathematicians, that 12,000 times or something like that. He's read it 12,000 times, and then he reads it 12,001 times, and he's finding new meanings that he hadn't discovered before. SubhanAllah. This is from the ajaib of the Quran. So alhamdulillah. So inshallah, we're coming to an end. We ask Allah to make these gatherings blessed and meaningful for us in our lives, and to make it at the beginning, inshallah, of a journey towards understanding the Quran, such that we arrive at a stage where we understand every single word, and more importantly, we feel the sweetness of the Quran within our lives. Like we have that aspect of dhawq, like the Sahaba had. The Sahaba, like they mentioned, we're talking in the context of geopolitics. If you want to understand geopolitics, why were the Sahaba undefeated? Why were they unbeatable? There are 2 qualities. Like I've mentioned the story a number of times about the Chinese. So the Romans, are losing battle after battle. So the Roman emperor, he writes to the Chinese emperor. This is like now, the American president writing to the Chinese president. Yeah, China's still a power now, saying, listen, we're getting Hamadi, what do we do? And he said, okay, send some spies, go and find out what these guys are doing. Go and find out what the Muslims are doing. So then they come back, and the spies they say that these Muslims, they said all night they build these big fires, and they're in circles, and they're reciting a book. Because we've got nobody who's reciting a book. They do that all night. Because then when morning time comes, they're fighting over each other to serve their brother, to put their brother first. They're fighting over, I want to, or whatever food they've got, they want to give it away. And someone else is going to feed someone. No, I want to do it. They're fighting over each other. When the Chinese emperor finds this out, he says, you'll never ever defeat these people. They're going to continue to smash it out of the park. And he said, if you set the mountains against them, they demolish the mountains and carry on. because you're never ever going to defeat these people, and they're going to conquer the world very easily. This was happening. They were having like 2,000-3,000 people fighting 100,000, 200,000, and the Muslims were winning. They were running right around again and again and again. So he's like, what do we do? So then what did the Roman Emperor say? Because what do you want me to do? Then he said, distract them with something else. If you want to defeat them, that's what's happened at Masjid al-Aqsa. Masjid al-Aqsa, what's the answer? Masjid al-Aqsa, don't be distracted by other things. Spend your nights reciting the Quran, and then spend your day loving your brother more than you love your own self. Khalas, it's as simple as that. And like really, what? Love your brother more than you love you love someone else's child more than you love your own child. Yeah, you put them first. You love whatever food that you wanted to eat, you give that to someone else, and you have moldy bread. And we've seen that from our teachers. We've seen that from things come in, they just give them, and then they just set off absolutely nothing. Have those types of qualities, and then we'll talk about Al-Aqsa, we'll talk about the Haramain, we'll talk about the whole world. It's all be on a plate. It's all going to be in play. Like when Aqsa is reconquered, people are just going to walk in and they'll reconquer it. The Siddiq, mark my words, by Allah, the Siddiq could have walked into Jerusalem and he would have fallen for it. He would have, whatever he did. Like he said, didn't he? He said when it came to the zakah, they didn't want to fight. The Muslims were saying, listen, we've got too many problems in Medina. We can't go out and meet an army in Yemen who aren't paying the zakah. We have to stay in Medina and deal with our problems. He said, listen, I'll go out by myself. Because I'll take the army by myself with just like a stick. It's like because I'll pull a branch, a twig of a tree, and I'll go into battle against them. And Sayyidina Umar heard him, he said, this man's serious. He's not messing around. He said, okay, we'll let's have a rethink about this. We'll send an army out. Let's try and make the best of the situation. But the Siddiq doesn't care. Okay, don't support me. That's fine. You carry on dealing with your problems in Medina. I've got this to deal with. He said, no, on my watch. Because there's no way I'm going to be the leader. There's no way I'm going to be the leader and people are not going to pay their zakat. Abadan. Now look, there's no way I'm going to be in the world and Masjid al-Aqsa is going to be in that. Well, it is. We can't really do much about it, can we? This ajaz that we have is all internal. It's all internal, and it's all due to the way we've disgraced ourselves. I mean, how many appeals have we done here? Like what Sheikh Afaq was saying, it takes more than just a 5 or a 10. Yeah, that kind of, my serious stuff now, serious stuff like, big boy stuff, grown men stuff, and all the kind of stuff that we talk about. You get £5 here, £10 here, this, that, and the other, and you think that much the access is going to be freed. No, it's about loving other people far, far more than you love yourself. Loving strangers, loving your enemy. Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, who's the last person who conquered Al-Aqsa? Salahuddin al-Ayyubi, when his enemy, Richard the Lionel, was injured, he sent his best physician. He sent his best doctor to go and treat his enemy because he was injured. What kind of character is that? He's sending this is someone who's trying to destroy him and end Islam in that area. And he's sending him his best doctor to treat him because he's not well. This is just Khatam and Jude. You can't help but be generous. That's just what he is. Subhanallah. So when you see qualities like that, mashallah, then we won't need to worry about Al-Aqsa. Yeah, we won't need to. You'll be taken care of by those types of people, inshallah. But for us, the beginning of it is spend your nights enjoying the Quran. And by doing that, inshallah, and then during your days, all you want to do is serve people. They said about Sayyidina Umar, he'd only sleep like an hour a day or something like that. But sometimes he wouldn't sleep at all. And they said, why? Take some rest. He said, I don't have time because my nights, I enjoy the Quran too much. I can't sleep at night because, mashallah, I'm in conversation with my Lord. I'm reading the Quran. And said, in the day, I've just got too many responsibilities. And I fear that even if one person in my empire complains against me on the Yom Kippur, what will I be able to say? I have to take care of the animals within, and it's a vast empire. It's a huge. So I've got to take care of everything. How do you want me to rest? I can't rest. My days are busy, just taking care of my responsibilities, freeing my neck from hellfire, and then my nights are spent doing more enjoyable things. I'm not going to sleep when I've got the Quran right in front of me. These are the types of qualities we hope to inculcate. Moving on now beyond Ramadan. Inshallah, the Ramadan was a training camp that allowed us to learn about these realities, and we hope to continue them. We ask Allah to make us firm on this religion, inshallah. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala sayyidina wa habibina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sallam. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. If there's any questions, inshallah.